Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the Greater Hernando County Chamber of Commerce October session of our 2020 Keys to Success Business Development Series. Today's session is Sun Tzu and the Art of Marketing, and our presenter is Vince Vanni of Vince Vanni Associates. Let me just share a little bit of information about Vince and his background. Vince Vanni has devoted 35 years to creatively marketing a variety of products, programs, and organizations. During that time, he devoted a reputation for creativity, efficiency, and above all, effectiveness. During a 15-year tenure with a major publishing firm, Vince Vanni became a national sales leader, earning awards as a top national sales producer and sales manager. During most of his tenure as a sales manager, he was responsible for hiring, training, and supervising his company's annual national sales leaders. While with the National Healthcare Facility, Mr. Vanni was the Director of Community Relations and Marketing. During his tenure, market share grew over 50%, and despite the opening of competitive facilities in the area. Believing that high performance is the result of high satisfaction, Mr. Vanni has created and implemented several staff development programs which resulted in an increase of up to 25% in sales and revenue. Vince now enjoys a lucrative practice and consults to some of the area's leading businesses, medical practices, and public officials. In 2005, Vince Vanni was the recipient of the Greater Hernando County Chamber of Commerce Small Business of the Year Award and Chamber Service Award. Vince is also the co-founder and vice president and marketing director for the ever-growing Live Oak Theater and Conservatory at the Carol and Frank Morsani Center, which is located in Brooksville. Please help me welcome Vince Vanni of Vince Vanni Associates. Good afternoon, Vince.
Good afternoon, Pat.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Pat. Actually, it may seem, for those of you who know me, you may not realize that I'm a little uncomfortable doing this. What do I mean by that? I'm not used to talking to a camera. I've been working in live classrooms, and I'm really comfortable with the Socratic method. Those of you who have attended some of my sessions know that, they can go long, but they're always interactive, and you wonder where the time went. Well, this is the first time I get to talk straight, and I'm not exactly comfortable with it, so please bear with me as we go along. I read this book, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And after reading it the second time, I noticed something that it's really very, very helpful in what I do for a living. The implications in his principles that the principles have for marketing, especially here on the local level and in this particular market, is astounding. The concept that when people come down here is that, well, there's plenty of business for everybody. Well, that works in the big cities like New York, like Chicago, etc., but not in a much tighter market. The only way that any small business can grow and to increase their own business is to take it away from somebody else and to provide a service that someone else is either not providing at all or not providing well. And the idea is to get your point across to the consumer that you can do this. And that's why Sun Tzu's The Art of War has so many implications for today. So I started doing some research. And it wasn't at first that I noticed that I'm not the only one who's been thinking of this. If you go online, you will find countless articles on Sun Tzu's Art of War being applied to marketing. And in fact, there's even a book, complete books written about it called, strange enough, The Art of Marketing. But the popularity of Sun Tzu is growing, and it's lasted for over 3,000 years because its teachings become influential in business, politics, and even marketing. In a limited amount of time, I'm just going to take some of his basic principles. And the cool thing about the way he writes is he writes in principles. It's almost like tips for generals. First principle. Sun Tzu says, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. Now, what in the world does that mean? It means that effective marketing doesn't even have to feel like marketing to be effective. What do I mean by that? Classic example, what am I doing now? Okay, marketing and marketing consulting is an intangible item. It's impossible for me to tell a potential client, whether a small business, person just starting out, big business, exactly what I do. So the key is you offer them a sample. And you offer them and you share knowledge of what you know. That's effective marketing. Okay. Sun Tzu also says, in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. Now, nowhere is that more applicable than in 2020. Okay, due to the widespread use of the internet and the various forms of digital marketing, all forms of marketing have become actually diluted. Those who survive and who survive during this day and age, and who survived 2020, which is probably the most difficult period we have encountered since most of us have been living here in this area. Okay, those who survive become the future's leaders. Right now, consumers are being inundated with a record number of marketing messages. If you go on Facebook, you'll notice that there are major companies offering the exact same messages in just a variety of different formats all along Facebook. I mean, I personally, how many times can I see the 3 basic rules for avoiding COVID done by every single healthcare company? And they wonder why all of a sudden they're not getting the likes that they used to get. So how do you increase that? Sun Tzu says, victorious warriors win first, then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Now, what in the world does that mean? It means you need to define your goals and learn whether or not these goals are achievable. Then you take the steps to achieve them. Sun Tzu also says, supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. The most effective marketing gets consumers to buy without selling them. Now, what do you mean by that? Well, it's using a wide range of techniques that involve sincerity and reason. I had a friend who became my marketing consultant when I was marketing director over at Oak Hill Hospital. His name was Lanny Usabo, and he owned and ran Usabo Advertising and Public Relations. Once a week we met, and he would advise. And every so often, he would show me something that he's doing for another client. And I'd say, wow, that's really good. You think you could do that for me? He was so smooth at it that it took about 5 years before I realized he was selling me. He was selling me products. And rather than just say, you know, you ought to do this, he was working in a neat, subtle way, and he was advising, and I never realized I was being sold. Sun Tzu says, opportunities multiply as they are seized. In other words, things are ever evolving, and the small business person has to know when the market is changing so that they can adapt to it. More on how to do that later. Okay, the general, Sun Tzu says, who advances without coveting fame and retreats without fearing disgrace, whose only thought is to protect his country and to do good service for his sovereign, is the jewel of the kingdom. Okay, forget the term general, forget the term country. Think in terms of your business owner and your client and your consumer. Do not just think of the end result of what's going to happen all of the time. In other words, don't let pride be your downfall. Don't think, if I do it this way, okay, will this help me? Think in terms of the consumer. My old boss over at Oak Hill Hospital used to say to me, Vince, healthcare is like an equation. You take care of one side and the other side will take care of the other. Take care of the patient and the finances will take care of itself. It's basically the same thing. Also, don't be afraid to retreat and regroup if something doesn't go the way you intended. It doesn't mean it's all over. Don't be afraid of failure or mistakes. Mistakes are how we learn, and by accepting and learning from them, you can hone your marketing skills. The president of IT&T wrote a book on common sense marketing, and in it he talks about an example. The biggest question he asks, and I've done this with every interview that I've ever had with a prospective employee, the biggest question is, tell me about the biggest mistake you ever made and how much did it cost your company? Now, the person who turns around and says, I don't make those kinds of mistakes, the interview is over as far as I'm concerned. Because only big people make big mistakes. Little people make little mistakes. But the key is that if you make the mistake, you recognize it and you learn from it, it means that, for one thing, you're teachable and you're trainable and that you're able to grow. One of the heads of a technology company locally here, in a seminar that we did together on a panel one day, turned around and said to a bunch of new businesses just starting, please understand, failure is an event. It is not something to get you down. Failure in a project is an event. It's new data. So learn from that data and move forward. Now, another principle. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. I want to read that again. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. What does that mean? Effective marketing requires both discipline with your strategy and executing the correct tactics to get to where you're going, not veering from your plan. Follow the plan. Whatever you've decided on, trust your instincts. Sun Tzu says, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you are ignorant of both your enemy and yourself, you are certain to be in peril. In other words, know your strengths and your weaknesses before attempting any project, any campaign. Put down the words SWOT. You must have heard this a dozen times. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the opportunities before me? And of course, what are the threats? If you know what's out there and you know yourself and you know your capabilities, you can be successful. Pay attention to market trends, not to your competition. And what influences in the industry are doing. What are the real influencers doing? Don't lose sight of the forest for the trees. Stay up to date on the trends in the market. Now, how do you really do that? Okay, well, I'll digress for a moment. You do it with the Chamber of Commerce. There is no more cost-effective way. I mean, and I know I'm doing a commercial right now, but I have been a member of this Chamber of Commerce since 1988. Either my businesses have or I have personally. I mean, that's a long time, okay? What happens is when you join the Chamber of Commerce, there are resources that you could not really afford on your own. If you're a small business, you get to hobnob, you get to network. And the key is when you're networking, you should not be talking. You should be listening. I have a grandson right now who's redshirting for the Bulls, for USF. This year, okay, he is regarded right now as the smartest kid on that team. I mean, he is a genius. He's there on full academic scholarships, not for sports reasons. But his whole first year, he is smart enough to know all he's going to do is listen and learn and figure out what is available on that team, what's available in the league, and what can his coaches teach him. If you keep doing this, I mean, this kid is he's going to be a millionaire someday. I'm hoping he takes care of me when I'm much older. Anyway, over the years, I have been the marketing director for the largest hospital in the area, enjoyed large budgets as a consultant for some of the biggest medical companies and physician practices. However, I just don't have those kinds of people as clients. In fact, the thing that helps me learn more about marketing is the business that I'm really most proud of. We grew this business with absolutely or almost no marketing budget. But that's not saying we didn't market. We marketed, but we had to use creativity to market because we didn't have the budget. What am I talking about? 12 years ago, 3 people had an idea for a theater company, and we gathered the support of 2 others. Between the 5 of us, we had an artist who was a manager of a TV station, therefore an artist with a sense of business. That's an oxymoron, okay? Then myself, I am not an artist. I am a businessman who happens to be artistic. The other 3 business people were successful business people in the area who were originally artists and then became business people and became successful in it. We founded Live Oak Theater, and within a decade, we developed a reputation, a following, a niche market, to the point where now it commands a cultural center on the corner of on State Road 50 bypass. We moved forward with not just what we wanted to do. There was more than that. We offered what our market lacked. Often when what you want to do and what is lacking in the market are the same, that's when you have success. So what was that one thing? Family-friendly theater for adults and children alike, where adults and children work together. We built a niche, and most people would say, is there really a niche for that? Take a look at the State Road 50 bypass at what used to be 3 other failing businesses. Sun Tzu points out that even when facing perceived limitations, creativity can lead to new possibilities that didn't previously exist. Okay. In the 2nd century BC, this general, Sun Tzu, points out that even when facing perceived limitations, creativity can lead to new possibilities that didn't previously exist. The classic example is that how Live Oak Theater adapted to the particular need in the market. The theater is known for being family friendly, and only offers family friendly, but is a full performing arts program. It has a certain standard, and that was lacking in not just the standard, but exactly what we were doing was totally lacking in 3 or 4 counties. Therefore, while everyone else is competing for one market, okay, the sophisticated venues and the sophisticated programs, we chose a completely different path and built a reputation around one specific niche, and the people who are looking for that niche found us. Sun Tzu says, "He who exercises no forethought but makes light of his opponents is sure to be captured by them." What does that mean? It means respect your competition. More often than not, I try to second guess my competition, and I'm told over and over again, relax, Vince, they're not that smart. Well, maybe that's true, but I don't care. Because if I play as if they are that smart, I'm prepared for any eventuality. I play my marketing strategy knowing that my competition is that smart, or I believe that my competition is that smart. And I'll be playing chess and be able to predict moves ahead and be able to counter them because I'm going to be saying, now that's what I would do. And so therefore I've got to counter that. And I would do this, so I've got to counter that. Now my client says, but they're not that smart. We don't have to do it that way. And I'd say, let's plan for it. How much can it hurt? Sun Tzu says, appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you're not expected. In other words, find the niche that no one is serving. As at Live Oak Theater, they found the niche while others were fighting for the sophisticated retiree. Live Oak Theater went for what many thought was a very much smaller market. And since it was the only one providing that need, it became a strong niche in the market. Sun Tzu says, the general is skillful in attack, whose opponent does not know what to defend, and he is skillful in defense, whose opponent does not know what to attack. What does that mean? That means your competitor must not know what you are marketing until it is too late. Do not market to the market that your competitor is part of. Market directly to the consumer. If you're doing it right, you're reaching an audience and that audience only. More than likely, your competitor is not. When it comes to TV ads, radio ads, okay, look for the specific age group or specific demographic that you want to reach. If you do it right, your competitor is not watching the same shows that your market is watching, doesn't even realize you're on television or that you're on the radio. Classic example, I was advising and still advise a major specialty practice. I don't want to get into which one it is. When we decided to commit major dollars to television, we did a complete study, or actually the TV station did a complete study, gave us the specific demographic that we felt we could appeal to. We were on TV for 3 to 4 months, patients coming in and telling physicians, I saw you on television, I saw you on television, I saw you on television. And the competing physicians never knew we were there. Why? Because they're not watching the same programs. Sun Tzu says, an army without a baggage train is lost. Without provisions, it is lost. Without base of supply, it is lost. In any campaign, whether marketing or military, you've got to be sure you have sufficient resources. What does that mean? It means do not do certain types of media, whether it's television, whether it's air, whether it's billboards, unless you are willing to not do it on the cheap. You must be willing to commit for time. You cannot commit to airtime unless you give it 3 to 6 months because you need the repetition. And you can't just say, well, I'll just take a few ads here and there and cherry pick. You can't do that. You've got to be able to get on air and be repetitive and get your message constantly. If you're not able to do it, and if you don't have the resources, then use some other form of marketing or enlist sponsors, enlist help to get that kind of marketing done. If you cannot repeat your ads or you're not willing to commit your budget to repeat your ads or your messages, you're not ready yet for that kind of campaign. Sun Tzu says, guns and drums, banners and flags are means whereby the ears and the eyes of the host may be focused on one particular point. In this case, it's modern media. If the enemy has occupied them before you, do not follow him, but retreat and try to entice them away. In other words, if somebody is already entrenched in a market, you thought you would be able to serve, back off. look for something else. Classic example in war is the Battle of Gettysburg. The Yankees gained the ground, the hills at Gettysburg, Little Bighorn, not Little Bighorn, sorry, Little Round Top and Big Round Top, early on. The Confederates army approached. General Longstreet tells General Lee, we really shouldn't fight here. It's time to withdraw because we do best with the defensive campaign. We make the Union attack us, and of course, and therefore that's how we've been defeating the Union. Lee said, no, the enemy is here. And so for 3 solid days, he charged up that hill, and that became the turning point of the Civil War. Apply that in your own businesses and understand what that means. Sun Tzu says, regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even to the death. And what does that mean? You have 2 markets. You have your consumer market, and you have your staff market, your employee market, your networking market. They are totally different markets. They are your colleagues, your associates, and then there's your consumer. Treat your colleagues, your associates, your employees. In our case, it becomes our performers and our stage crews, etc., as if they are your own children. You have your business associates cultivate those relationships in the market in and of itself as a separate market, not just as something that can feed you what you need. What do we mean by that? Be a resource. Do not be the kind of person that everyone goes to for information. Be ready to have people call you and say, can you give me advice on how to do this? And not be afraid and say, well, I need to be paid for that. You do. But if you treat people as friends and associates and you make that decision and you make your decisions based on that, then you gain another whole army. Classic example is to use Live Oak Theater, one of the smallest businesses around. We began with doing summer camps where we cultivated the children. Then we used those kids in the different performances. Those children had parents. We got those parents involved in the performances. We then were able to sell tickets to the performances, and now the Live Oak Theater and Conservatory has a complete conservatory of all kinds of lessons in every one of the arts. We teach just about every single musical instrument as well. We have classes, we have rehearsals, we have performances. We have outdoor and indoor performance. We've basically spread out to become a resource for everyone. And finally, Sun Tzu says, if the enemy leaves a door open, you must go in. Meaning, if no one is doing something, fill that need. Don't always say, me too. I do this too. I do this too. Sun Tzu has a saying that the enlightened general lays his plans well ahead, but the good general cultivates his resources. Utilize the resources around you. The Chamber of Commerce is filled with members who have been through recessions, we've been through good times, we've been through bad times, and we're still here, which means we have already survived the recessions. We've already survived various forms of chaos. Rub elbows with those people. Use them as a resource. That becomes why the chamber is of such value. The advantage of a chamber is you get to rub elbows. And you'll be able to network with people who have done this before and take advantage of all of that. Not all the new people who are just moving here and are experiencing the same as you do. Basically, look to all of us as your resource. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Vince. We really appreciate your time and, of course, your words of wisdom with all of your experience in marketing. So I've had the opportunity to know Vince for 20 years since I've been with the Chamber, and I will share with you one of his recommendations to me as far as to be successful in business. Find a need and fill it. And I think that's primarily what you were saying through the thread through your whole presentation. So as a business, find the need, okay, and then fill that need. And of course, provide customer service as doing that, and you'll have a successful business in Hernando County. And again, thank you so much for the plug for our chamber. Yes, we have a wonderful Chamber of Commerce. We are the only chamber in Hernando County. And, we have a great, great chamber. Vince is a past chairman of the board, and we thank you so much for your commitment to the chamber, not only through yourself, through your businesses, but of course the associate businesses that you work with. So join us on Friday, October the 23rd for our next Lunch and Learn, which is 12 to 1. That Lunch and Learn is a proactive business plan, the law of curiosity, and that's going to be presented by Charlotte Edwards of Training Solutions by Charlotte Edwards. So go to hernandochamber.com and you can register for that no-cost workshop, which again is on October the 23rd, Friday, from 12 to 1 o'clock. Thank you very much and have a great weekend.
How was it?
It was good. Yeah, I think you did a great job. I think that...
I was not used to this, you know that. I mean,
Well, I
it's...
think that everybody, even as many years that you've been in business, that, everybody has a new learning